We're not even into the full swing of NAMM and things are hotting up. Roland have revealed a brand new module and 4 new kits, and they look like they could be pretty good competition for the other companies that have gained a lot of traction in recent years. I'm going to give you an overview of the module's features, the new kits and their components, and my first impressions on the direction that Roland is taking. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the eDrum workshop. I'm Luke and I hope you're having a great day. I was expecting Roland to come in pretty strong this year, but I was not expecting them to go after my video schedule this hard. Due to the fast pace of the NAMM reveals and all the products that are going to be on show, there's probably going to be a few extra videos this week, so make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any. Nailed it. This is a pretty big deal for the electronic drum scene. Roland have announced a new mid-range module and kit, the TD-27 module and the TD-27KV kit, which was one of my sort of safe predictions for NAMM. It seemed about time. But they've also gone and announced a new product line with 3 new kits. The V-Drums Acoustic Design Range, or VAD for short, with the VAD 506, the VAD 503 and the VAD 306. These names are really awkward, but at least they've not quite hit Gibraltar levels of convoluted yet. So I've kind of mad scrambled to get this video done. I was working all day yesterday as it was being announced, and I don't get any inside information. I'm getting this news at the same time as you guys. So I understand that there's already a lot of stuff out there and a lot of this has already been covered to death online. I'll get into the VAD line shortly, but first let's take a look at the TD-27 module and the KV kit. I actually first saw the TD-27KV kit on Tuesday night. Someone posted a photo to the V-Drums forum before anything popped up on any of the other groups. It was pretty much what I expected in terms of the kick drum, the toms, the cymbals and the look of the module, but the most striking thing was the use of the 2 digital pads from the TD-50, the PD-140DS and the CY-18DR. I had a feeling that one of them might have been added to the mid-range, but I was really surprised that they decided to bring over both. But the more I thought about it, the more sense it actually made. This is Roland establishing that the digital pads are here to stay. They weren't just a flagship experiment, and they're clearly using them as an edge over other kits on the same level as the TD-27. You aren't going to get triggers like these on any other module for this price point. So I thought that was pretty cool, but they definitely do look a little bit out of place on this kit as they've decided to go with 10-inch toms all around, including the floor tom, and of course the small kick tower rather than a KD-120 or 140 completes the sort of strange overall look of the kit for me. From the initial look at the kit, I gathered that there must have been a couple of other models lined up. Roland usually offer 2 or 3 variations of their kits. You get the basic like with the TD-27KL, and then you get a nicer one with better pads like the TD-27KV, and then you get the sort of flashy kit at the top end of the price range like the TD-17KVX. Fast forward to Wednesday morning, Roland announced 4 kits right out of the gate, but no others in the main TD-27 line. It makes a bit more sense once you look into the VAD kits, but it still feels a bit strange to have just the one mainline pad kit. And with this announcement, we now know more about the TD-27 module too. I personally think that the TD-27 module looks like a pretty great mid-range option. Roland have continued the trend that they started with the TD-17 where they decided to pack on the extra features. This is somewhat of a reversal of what they did with the TD-25 where they seem to strip out a lot of features for no really good reason. So I'm glad they've scrapped that line of thinking and they're going for an approach of more value. In fact, there's some features here that even the TD-50 doesn't have. They've brought over the Bluetooth functionality from the TD-17 so you can hook up a phone or another device for playing along to music, that kind of thing. And from one of the Sweetwater demo videos that I checked out, it even appears that they've added the mute group function like there is on the SPDSX and some of the other modules. This was interesting to me as they don't have that on the TD-50 either. This lets you cut off the sound from one drum with the hit of another one. It's not the most sought after feature, but it is quite fun in a sound design kind of way. On the front of the module, they've gone for the quick function approach that they started with the TD-25 and carried through to the TM6 Pro and the TD-17. There are some big face buttons for quick access to different effects and menu options. They don't seem to have kept the ambience and EQ knobs from the TD-17. That had a simple bass and treble knob for quickly editing the overall EQ of the kit. but they have brought over the tuning, muffling, instrument and level knobs that the TM6 Pro has. And I think that's a really good feature. I think I'd have liked to have seen maybe a few faders myself, but I think that instrument knob combined with the level knob means that editing the volumes of pads should still be much quicker than diving into the menus, even if it's not quite as handy as faders would be. The tuning and muffling knobs are very handy for quickly changing and experimenting with sounds. I actually wish that they were more easily accessible on the TD-50, but I do think it's really weird that they didn't include the ambience knob too, as I think that would have been a very useful addition. They've also kept the colour LEDs behind the knobs that the TD-50 had. It's a very basic aesthetic thing, but I do like them. You can use the different colours to sort of easily differentiate between different kinds of kit, for example. It has a coach mode too, which is usually a feature of these lower and mid-tier modules. There's different kinds of metronome exercises you can do to check your timing and stuff, that's always handy. Going round to the connections on the module, they've opted to stick with a cable snake for the main trigger inputs. I'm not a huge fan of cable snakes, but I get why they use them on the smaller module builds. I'm glad that they've added 4 additional trigger inputs. There's a crash 2 and AUX 1, 2 and 3 inputs. This is much better than just the 2 that they gave you on the TD-25 and the TD-17. It helps sort of elevate it above the lowest tier in my opinion. They've also done somewhat of a U-turn on the MIDI ports and they've included both MIDI in and MIDI out, which I think's great. I always think that the more options for these things the better. Just how much scope you'll have for the MIDI in is yet to be seen, but I do like it nonetheless. And then the bit that actually shocked me the most. Not just the 2 USB ports for the currently available pads, but 3 like on the TD-50. I don't know why, but I just assumed that they'd limit it down to 2. This really makes me think that they do have another pad lined up in the future. People have speculated on a digital hi-hat since the TD-50 was announced, and maybe we might see it at some point. They've also put a foot switch jack on there, which I like. I've not checked the manual, but usually this gives you handy functionality for things like swapping kits and turning effects on or off. There's also 2 direct outputs, which are a very welcome addition to the mid-range. This gives you a bit more flexibility if you want to use the module live. Then there's also the USB port for connecting it to a PC too. What I find very interesting and slightly annoying is that this allows the TD-27 to be used as an interface for 28 audio channels. They only give you 10 on the TD-50. It's such a strange thing. There's also the SD card for user sample imports like on both the TD-17 and the TD-50, and I fully expected to see this seeing as it's based on the same architecture. Moving on to the sounds, because it's based on the TD-50, that sonic character is still there. However, like with the TD-17, the sounds aren't taken exactly from the TD-50 and a lot of them sound more instantly usable. This seems to be a trend on Roland modules. You get more options for shaping the sound on a flagship, but they seem to do a better job of rounding out the stock kits on the lower modules. I'd be pretty happy with the onboard sounds here. There's something like over 700 instruments, and from what I've heard, they're sort of a combination of upgraded TD-17 sounds, some that sound like nicer edits of the TD-50 sounds, and then some that sound a bit more unique. I haven't really had a chance to fully dive into the demo videos or the instrument list, so that's about as far as I can comment on there. The sounds certainly aren't up there with the likes of the Mimic or a VST, or even as acoustically realistic as the ATV AD5, but they are functional enough, and from what I know that the TD-50 is capable of, I'm sure you'll be able to shape these sounds well enough and layer them with one-shot samples, even if there's not as many options as there are on the TD-50. Roland's sounds tend to give you a decent play feel alongside their triggering engine too. My overall thoughts on this module is that it's a pretty decent, solid, mid-level offering from Roland. It's a good jump up from the TD-17, it brings over enough features from above it to offer a lot of good options, and it fixes many of the mistakes from the TD-25. I get the feeling that this module will be the most capable VST triggering module in this price range. You can use the full range of benefits of the digital pads and their positional sensing, and the Roland trigger engine always works really well with VSTs for the analog pads. There's a few extra inputs for expansion, and the price point is much more palatable than the TD-50 if you're not interested in the stock sounds. To be fair, the feature set here actually makes me feel like the TD-27 would be an alright downgrade from the TD-50. If you don't use all of the TD-50's features to their potential, it actually looks kind of alright. So, onto the new kit range. The VAD 506, 503 and the 306. These are the big ones. Roland have finally delved into the world of acoustic-like drum pads, and they've brought some new cymbals along to complement the shells. I feel like this actually marks quite a shift in the eDrum industry. Yes, there have been plenty of other brands offering these options like the ATV's eDrums, custom companies like DrumTech, and some of the other contenders like the Gaver G9 have gone this route too. But the market leader has finally acknowledged that the demand for eDrums that look like acoustic drums is great enough to cater to with a solid offering. It looks to me like they're really gunning for ATV's product line here. From what I've seen of the price points, it appears that their 4-piece 503 kit is pretty much positioned directly against the ATV Artist standard kit, and the 5-piece 506 with the extra cymbal is up against the ATV Artist expanded kit. If I've got the prices off a bit there, let me know, but it's not just the price points either. The look of these kits is very similar. They've ditched the rack and they've gone for acoustic stands. Now, ATV might finally shed some light on their Pro range this weekend, but currently the big edge that these VAD kits have over the current ATV kit is that the Roland kits have those digital pads, and they've also got a 14-inch floor tom. So the snare and the floor tom are an inch bigger than those on the ATV Artist range, and if you get the 506 with the 2 rack toms, there's a 12-inch rack tom in there too. The ATV only has 10-inch rack toms even if you opt for 2 of them. So I feel like they're aiming for having a slight edge there. They've also gone straight in on ATV's trigger design too. The 14-inch and the 12-inch toms both have a 3 trigger cone design. More companies are going for this approach and I can see why. Removing the hotspot from the centre of the pads is really useful, and it helps even things out on larger pads. I'll be interested to see if they roll out a preset for these drums on other Roland modules. Roland now having a 3-cone design means that we might get better results out of other 3-cone triggers. A Roland preset made specifically for this kind of design would probably help. So I get the impression that the TD-27 module might play a bit better with anybody's third-party 3-cone pads, or even their ATV kits, and hopefully if they update the other modules they will too. For the 10-inch pad they seem to have just gone for a side trigger, and I can't really see the problem there. They still avoid the hotspots of a centre cone, but the head size is small enough to get decent results. They've also brought out 2 new cymbals paired with these kits. The CY14CT is featured on both the 506 and the 503, and the CY16RT is part of the 506 kit. Another interesting development, these cymbals are thinner than previous Roland cymbals, and they also have a flatter profile, just like, you guessed it, ATV cymbals. It doesn't appear from what I can see that they've gone with a full 360 playable design like the ATV cymbals, and I can't quite see on the photos, but I assume that they're sticking with the rotation stoppers like on other Roland cymbals. The 16RT is also a 3-zone cymbal, so obviously that can be used as a ride, which I think is cool, though it probably can't be used as such alongside the CY18DR, which is a little annoying since they're both provided with one kit. But still, it's nice to see that as a ride upgrade option for people. Both of these kits are using the VH10 hi-hat too. It looks like they're planning on phasing out the VH11 entirely, which makes sense really. The VH10 is functionally the same, just lighter and thinner, so there's not really much reason to keep both of them going. Oh, and there's a new 20-inch kick drum too, the KD200MS. Looks like they've finally filled the gap between the KD180 on the TD-27KVX and the KD220 that they had on some of the TD50 kits. It looks to be constructed in the same way, a head with a built-in rubber pad. It would be nice if they decided to sell the head separately, but they never have with the 18-inch head if I remember rightly, which is a shame. I can see why they don't want people buying the head and then a much cheaper shell, but I do feel like they'd sell really well. Then moving on to the VAD 306 kit, this is Roland's answer for people who want acoustic-like drums but they want to keep the shallower depths for portability. It's the cheaper option too. They've paired this kit up with the TD-17 module, and I think that's quite an interesting move. The pads are 12-inch for the snare and the floor tom and 10-inch for the rack toms. The designs are simple but pretty effective, sort of a cross between the previous PD pads and acoustic shells. They've got lugs attached to the shells but they're still shallow and without a bottom head. Yeah, it's a simple design that looks surprisingly effective. They're providing CY12C crashes and a CY13R ride from what I can tell, which are all serviceable for this kind of idea. I think it'd be nice if they stretched to 14-inch crashes and either a 15-inch or a 16-inch ride, but you can always upgrade. I don't feel like slightly larger cymbal pads really add to the footprint or the portability, but they do look a bit better when paired with acoustic-like pads. There's also a new shallow version of the KD-180, the KD-180LBK, another absolute mouthful. It's only 7 inches deep and it has lightweight legs. It really will be much more portable and I think it looks like a pretty cool option. I'd look into buying one myself down the line, but it's probably going to be way more expensive than it should be. So overall, I really like the look of these kits. I think the shells mostly look pretty great, and it's good to see Roland acknowledging this sector of the market. I've been trying to read people's thoughts and reactions to these reveals, and there's a fair few people of the thought that this is typical Roland, bringing out really expensive versions of things that people want, and expecting us to pony up just because it's got a Roland badge on it. And I'm not going to flat out say that's wrong. Roland do kind of do that. They're always going to be on the expensive side of any price bracket. That's just where Roland position themselves in the market. I've got some ideas for a video about the future of eDrums that I'm going to be putting together after all this NAMM stuff dies down. So I'll go into more depth on my thoughts about that in that future video. So what do you guys think? Do you like these kits? Or do you think that Roland are losing their grip on the market and this is a desperate final stab at regaining it? Let me know down in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for sticking through the whole video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed it and you want more. I think there's going to be a ton of stuff coming this weekend and it's an exciting time to be an eDrummer. And with that, I'll see you next time. Cheers.